Hello everyone, welcome to Edge Time. No, it's been a little while since I've posted anything. I've just been super busy over the past few weeks, but I should be able to get back into posting content regularly now. So, the knife we're looking at today is the Bestech Glok. I got this knife a few weeks ago. It was on sale at Blade HQ, and this is a Blade HQ exclusive color of the Glock. I do like this knife. There are a few things about it that I don't like, and I will get into those in the review. But first of all, let's just get some measurements here. The overall blade length is about 3.5 inches with about 3.25 inches of edge length. The overall length of the knife itself is about 8 inches, and then closed is about 4 inches. So, a really well balanced knife. It's got about a perfect 50-50 between blade and handles, which is pretty neat. So this knife has 14C 28N steel, and Bestech does seem to have done a good job with it. It holds an edge fairly well, sharpens fairly easily. I did drop this knife on a concrete surface and rolled the tip a little bit and put a little roll on the edge, but I was able to sharpen both out very quickly and easily. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, like I said, it does sharpen easily. Takes a very nice hair popping edge. So I've had no issues with the blade steel itself. Bestech says it's flat ground, full flat, and it does almost appear to be full flat. It just, I don't know. To me, it almost seems like it could be hollow ground. It's very difficult to tell with how thin the blade gets behind the edge, but I will take their word for it and say it is a full flat grind. When you look at the knife from the spine, the blade stock appears thinner than it actually is because it has this long false edge along the top. But yeah, it actually has pretty good thick blade stock, and so it's sort of a robust design. The ergonomics are good on it. They're better than I thought they would be with how strange this knife looks. It looks very blocky and chunky and weird, but yeah, everything actually works really well. Your choke up is really good here. The jimping is in the absolute perfect spot. Because, like, back here, when you're using the knife here, the thumb stud gives you all the texture that you need to keep yourself from slipping. When you go to choke up, that is a really nice spot to put your thumb. And the jimping there is nice and sharp. It's not super crazy sharp. It's not going to hurt your hand, but it's very grippy. So I do like the ergonomics of this knife. No weird hot spots or anything. I haven't used this knife very hard yet, so under a prolonged period of hard use, you might start to feel some hot spots, especially like right here where my fingers wanting to slip in between the scales here. I could see that starting to get a little bit annoying after a long period of time, but just for everyday use, very comfortable in the hand. Let's see here. The pocket clip is good. It's pretty tight. No real notes on it. This knife is not, it's not possible to swap the clip over for left-hand carry. So just be careful. If you do want to carry it left-handed, I would not recommend doing so because you won't be able to ride the blade against the edge of your pocket. You might be tempted to think that with this thumb disc, it is possible to open it as you draw it out of the pocket, like a wave opener, but it doesn't really work very well. It would have to stick up a little bit more to do that. The opener here does stick out a little bit to the side, just slightly past the profile of the knife, so that could be annoying for some people, but for me, it's fine. All these screws back here are T6. This is a T8. That's most of what I wanted to talk about with this knife. I would say the pros of it are the design, mainly. I would have to say the design. It's a very bold, almost audacious design. It is good materials. This is G10, frag texture G10, which is pretty cool. Very nice and grippy. And then, of course, Sandvik 14C 28N steel. And it is a button lock on ball bearings, so it's very smooth, very easy to use. And this is a quiet button lock. The open is pretty quiet. It almost feels like, to me, like there's a rubber buffer in there somewhere when I'm opening and closing it, which is, I mean, that's simply not true. There's nothing in there that would do that. I've had this knife apart, and it's all steel on steel, so I don't know why it is so soft and quiet to open and close, but it is. So if you're looking for maybe a more subtle knife, one that doesn't just clank open like this CJRB, I mean, this thing is loud, very loud, especially if you open it hard. Whereas this Bestech, yeah, very quiet, very modest sounding at least. One of the least modest looking knives there is. But yeah. So those would be the pros: the ease of operation, the quietness, and the nicer materials. Now the cons of this knife, there are a couple. I like to call this knife a good design that is executed rather poorly. Um, and by that I mean the materials are good, but the craftsmanship is not the best. So I can go more into depth on that in the disassembly, but like just a real brief overview. It was very difficult for me to get this knife apart because they really dumped a bunch of Loctite into this pivot screw. I had to dunk this knife in boiling water for quite a while and then just really hammer on this screw. I had to do the tapping method, and then even then, it took a tremendous amount of force to slowly get it to back out. And I managed to damage a wee hot bit trying to take this out, and this screw didn't strip. So whatever they made these screws out of, I mean, presumably it's just stainless steel, but it is so hard that it was actually able to damage a wee hot Torx bit. Um, so yeah, but I mean, the hardness of the pivot isn't necessarily the issue. It's that it was stuck closed, and there was not much I could do to get it open. Um, so yeah, that was very frustrating. It's not a huge deal to me because I was able to deal with it, but for someone who maybe doesn't have access to nicer disassembly methods, this is going to be impossible to disassemble. I mean, you're just not going to be able to do it, and you're just going to have to basically blast it out with compressed air whenever it gets too dirty to open. But you can't do that forever. Eventually, it'll get to where you have to get in there and deep clean, which will be impossible if you can't get this pivot screw out. So that is the main con of this knife. That pivot screw is terrible. If you have this knife and you have had a better experience with that pivot screw, please let me know in the comments because I would like to think that mine was a lemon and that they're not all like this. But yeah, that just seems to be a poor design. And on top of that, this is a captive pivot, but this does move. I would show you if I had the screwdriver in front of me to do it, but if you use like a security style bit, you can actually move this part, this Bestech logo, I think it's what this is supposed to be. And yeah, it'll move back and forth in there. It won't move all the way around, but it's not quite captive. I wouldn't quite call it captive. So yeah, that's definitely a con, and none of these spacers back here are captive. Now, I have to admit, for not being captive, they do work pretty well. I'm usually able to get them in and out with no issues. They don't get stuck in there. They don't just rotate freely. At least not terribly. Not bad enough to where I can't get them out. So these are okay. Pocket clip screws are fine. No issues with those. So yeah, that's my main complaint about this knife. The pivot screw. The way the knife is designed, layer wise, is not the best either, because so as you can see, this side, well, this is the screw side, this is the captive bolt side. But the way I like to disassemble button locks is from this side up. So I like to put the knife down on this side and then stack the layers up like this. But I also, when I'm reassembling knives, I like to stack stuff on top of the pivot, if that makes sense. So basically just, it's difficult to find a good way to to reassemble this knife. It can be done. I mean, obviously I've had this knife apart and reassembled it, and I'm going to be making a separate disassembly reassembly for it, in which you will see my conundrum there. But other than that, if you're looking for a knife that looks like this, that is the situation in which I would say to go for the Glock. If you're looking for a knife that looks just like this. Otherwise, there are better knives out there. This is normally like a $60, $70 knife. I would not say it is worth $60 to $70. It is worth much closer to the around $40 that I paid for it because it was on sale at Blade HQ. So yeah, and I don't know if I said earlier in the video, but this is a Blade HQ exclusive color. The color you'll see most commonly is like a olive green G10 with a sort of tan Cerakote type blade. But I do like this color. This is a really neat color. I like the blue anodization on the thumb stud there. So yeah, so the Bestech Glok. Like I said, I would recommend it if you are looking for a knife that looks just like this. Otherwise, much better knives out there. The CJRB Echo, for example, around $50 or so, and just an excellent knife. Uh, the Echo has only grown on me. It has only become more of a favorite as I've owned it. When I first got it, I did like it. I just wasn't sure if I would like it forever, but the more I've owned it, the more I've realized just how well it fits my hand and just how good of a value the Echo is. So, yes, decent knife. There are much better knives for the price. So that concludes, as in like the Bestech Glok, decent knife, but much better knives for the price. So that concludes my review of the Bestech Glok. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out my other videos, including the disassembly for this knife. So, with that, I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day.